surprisingly, in each of these instances, the former president has weighed in on the findings the way he dealt with the 2020 defeat. Trump-era's special counsel John Durham has released his final report on the FBI's investigation into connections between Donald Trump's 2016 election campaign and Russia. The 306-page report, known as Crossfire Hurricane, has revealed little substantial new information about this inquiry. In short, it has failed to produce the promised blockbuster revelations against the FBI or its politically motivated misconduct, as suggested by the former US President Donald Trump and Durham himself. It took 3 years to publish this report of defense and justification of a lengthy investigation. Durham has repeated his own insinuations and report overseen by the special counsel Robert S. Mueller earlier. Apart from these repetitions, the report echoes a conspiracy theory pushed by Trump supporters that the FBI investigation in July 2016 was indirectly funded by the Clinton campaign. Here's a report.
A special counsel appointed under then U.S. President Donald Trump issued a report on Monday concluding that FBI agents lacked actual evidence when they opened a probe into whether members of Trump's 2016 presidential campaign conspired with Russia to win the White House. The release of the 306-page report by special counsel John Durham marks the end of a 4-year investigation into potential missteps by the FBI. In the midst of the 2016 campaign, the FBI received a tip that a Trump campaign official had bragged to an Australian diplomat that Russia had offered to help the Republican candidate by releasing damaging information about his Democratic rival Hillary Clinton. That tip blossomed into a full-fledged counterintelligence probe, dubbed Crossfire Hurricane, involving government requests to surveil members of Trump's campaign. That probe was later taken over by special counsel Robert Mueller's investigation into alleged collusion between the Trump campaign and Moscow. Trump raged against Mueller, castigating the probe as a witch hunt.
It's just a continuation of the same witch hunt. They know it, and behind closed doors, they laugh at it. It's just a continuation of the same nonsense.
After securing indictments or pleas from 34 individuals, Mueller in 2019 concluded that despite an array of contacts between Trump and individuals linked to the Russian government, he lacked sufficient evidence of a criminal conspiracy. That same year, Attorney General William Barr tapped John Durham to investigate the investigators. In lieu of convictions, Durham instead castigated U.S. intelligence and law enforcement, accusing them of treating the 2016 Trump probe differently from other politically sensitive investigations. For instance, he said Clinton and other officials received defensive briefings about being the possible targets of foreign interference, whereas Trump received no such briefings before the FBI opened probes into 4 members of his campaign. Durham added, quote, "The department and the FBI failed to uphold their important mission of strict fidelity to the law in connection with certain events and activities described in this report." In response to the report, the FBI said it has already implemented dozens of corrective actions that have been in place for some time. Durham's findings are likely to become political fodder for Trump, who is currently running for re-election in 2024, despite facing criminal charges in New York and 2 federal investigations by special counsel Jack Smith that are looking at both Trump's retention of classified records and his role in efforts to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election. Trump said on social media Monday that he was pleased with the results of Durham's report.
All right, let's try and get in some political perspective on how significant this report is, not just for the Republicans, but what kind of an impact is this going to have? Remember, we are looking at a year which is very crucial for U.S. politics, because we know that next year is going to be a deciding year for the United States, with its presidential elections all set to take place. Let me introduce Nicole Brenner-Schmitz, who's a Democrat strategist, Corinne Clark, who's a Republican strategist. Both of them are joining me live. Many thanks to you, Nicole and Corinne. Nicole, if I may begin with you, one of the key findings of the report states that there was lack of evidence of collusion before this detailed probe was launched. This finding is also Durham's core criticism against the FBI launching a detailed investigation. Somehow, the FBI says that it has made dozens of corrective actions, and that those measures, if they were in place back in 2016, these errors that have been mentioned in the report could have been prevented. Should Durham have, in fact, paid attention to the role of time? Was time of essence before Durham filed this report?
I mean, look, this report is ridiculous, and it's investigating the investigation. It was supposed to be this huge blockbuster. They found absolutely nothing. This was a giant waste of taxpayer dollars. This is what everybody in Congress should be crowing about. I mean, this was nonsense. And so, unfortunately, I don't think the American public is going to pay a huge amount of attention to it. This is going to have news for a few weeks and then fade off of the attention span. And I don't think it's going to have some kind of giant effect on the elections. This is just Trump and his cronies doing the same thing over and over again, crying foul, and then it turns out there's no foul there.
All right, Corinne, if I could bring you in on this argument, is time of the essence while assessing this report, and should Durham have taken that into consideration?
Absolutely, and I think he really didn't have the opportunity to release this report until now. The problem here is that the FBI absolutely admits their wrongdoing, but you see Democrats like Nicole will say, oh, there's nothing wrong. This is Trump crying foul. Well, if it's just Trump crying foul, why is the FBI admitting that they have multiple corrections made to prevent investigations like this? They are also admitting foul. The truth of the matter is that John Brennan briefed the White House, including President Obama, Vice President Biden, Loretta Lynch. He briefed all of them on Hillary's plan to tie Trump to Russia in August of 2016. That became the catalyst for a 4-year-long investigation against Trump that undermined his entire presidency. And still, we pretend that Trump is the one who's out of line for pointing that out. This is absolute wrongdoing, and it points out the collusion between our government and our media to silence the truth and to actually silence the will of the people, because this was meant to undermine a democratically elected president in 2016.
But Corinne, the fact is that, the Justice Department Inspector General's inquiry has already come up with these, flaws. So there's nothing new that has been filed by Durham, and that is what perhaps makes it, as we were saying, that there have been no blockbuster observations as far as this report is concerned. But in fact, let me bring in the angles as far as the fight between the FBI and Trump is concerned. Nicole, we've been privy to other GOP lawmakers accusing FBI of an anti-Trump bias in the past as well, especially when Trump was in the White House. Is the Durham report now new testimony to this bias, since it claims FBI of personal bias?
No, it's not. I mean, again, this is classic their playbook. And so it's anti the government, it's anti the establishment, it's woe is me. I mean, this is constantly what they're focused on, and they want to distract the American public by fear mongering and making them feel like victims and distracting from the real issues at hand and the things that we need to deal with in this country and what the president and his administration right now are focused on. But again, I don't think that the average American is going to know a whole lot about this report or be able to tell you the details of it. And I don't think this is going to stay as part of the presidential race for much longer than a couple of weeks while it swirls in the newsfeed.
Corinne, I'd like to bring you in on this, because I remember in 2018, several GOP lawmakers had in fact accused the FBI of harboring this anti-Trump bias. Even Donald Trump was part of that entire campaign. Would that now put to rest those claims?
I think it reignites the fire underneath those claims. There is obviously an anti-Trump bias in the FBI and in our entire intelligence community that continues to slow drip leak out to the media in the multiple ways that they've attempted to undermine Trump's presidency, his campaign, and still to this day, his candidacy now. I think it is funny that we pretend that the distraction is talking about how the FBI investigated Trump under false premises, and not how the FBI neglected to investigate real issues and instead decided to falsely investigate a democratically nominated president. That is the issue. That is the distraction. And that is what bothers the American people. Talking about the wrongdoing is what we need to do. Pretending the wrongdoing is a distraction is a huge issue.
No, but then there is still, a lot of focus on the report, and I won't take away from what the report is stating, and that is the news topic today. And which is why, Nicole, do you think the impact of the report also gets blunted due to Durham's own prosecution record and the prior scrutiny of the episodes by the Justice Department's Inspector General?
I think the Durham report is being looked at for what it is, and it doesn't have anything there. This was promised to be this huge blockbuster going to show you all these terrible things that happen, and it's a nothing burger. And that's what's getting the attention paid to it, and that's what's happening right now. There's no there for them to point to.
And especially the fact that it comes after, Robert Mueller had already wrapped his investigation of the entire matter. Corinne, how do you look at Durham's presence? Because we are looking also at a man who's successfully navigated his way between both administrations, whether it was that of Donald Trump or even that of Joe Biden now.
Yeah, I would have to agree that this isn't a bombshell report, and that's because anyone who was paying attention knew that all of this happened as soon as it was happening. Trump has said that this was a witch hunt under a completely false premise since 2016. Of course, the Democrats all called him crazy for that. But I think what is the worst part is that it doesn't matter that it's been a proven hoax. Now they'll say, this is a nothing burger, but that's because this hoax has achieved its goal. It completely obstructed the Trump administration for 4 years, and now it's been debunked, and it doesn't matter, and no one will pay for it. But what it did prove is that the media, our politicians, our government, our intelligence agency, they will do anything to accomplish a political goal. They no longer serve the American people, and that is something that we cannot ignore, and I don't think that means nothing to the American voter. That is going to be something that the Democrats will have to answer for. Why were you complicit in this complete abuse of power meant to undermine our electoral system?
All right, which is why I am going to refer to what Donald Trump has to say. He seized on the report, and in a post on his Truth Social platform, Donald Trump claims the Durham report had found, quote unquote, the crime of the century, and called the Russia investigation the quote unquote Democrat hoax. What will this mean for Donald Trump's 2024 White House hopes, Nicole?
Well, look, I mean, that's Donald Trump rhetoric right there. Make it all or nothing. Here's the reality. I heard the guest say that this thwarted Trump's abilities, yet he's been running on what he got done when he was president for 4 years. So I guess it didn't completely thwart him from achieving anything. And it's dangerous to say that our intelligence communities are somehow sheerly political and working as this. We know that's not true. These are not sheerly political entities. Having the American public believe that the FBI and the CIA and all the good people who are doing the work there are not working on behalf of this country as patriots and doing what they believe is a good job in keeping America safe, that's a dangerous thing for the public to bite onto.
All right.
We can talk about some corrections that need to be had, but big, broad sweeps like that rhetoric's just not helpful.
I began with you, Nicole. Let me end with Corinne's thoughts. Corinne, let me have your closing thoughts.
Yeah, I think it is a nice thing to believe that our intelligence agencies all act within the goodness of their heart. That is not the case. These agencies are political animals, and they should be treated as such, and the scrutiny should be the same. They are not above criticism, and they definitely are not above wrongdoing, and we're seeing that repeatedly. And just this case, we can remember there were how many sex offenders that the FBI did not pursue, that the years they spent investigating Trump on what they knew was a false premise. But they let all these bad guys go. They did pursue Trump. That was #1 priority. That is something that needs to end. And that proves they are a political animal. You can't cover up for them forever.
All right. I'm sure this report is going to play a significant role, at least for the Republicans who already seem to be seizing on it now. Many thanks to you, Nicole and Corinne, for joining in on this discussion.